All right, I need to make a backup. So I think today I am going to make, Emily, I'll make you backup today.
Yeah, thank you. It's fine.
Yeah. My internet's been kind of wonky, so you may have to take things over here if I drop off for a bit. All right, let me share the screen. Share Google Chrome. Alrighty, so welcome everyone to the January 4th iteration of the MicroProfile Live Hangout 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. And a link to the meeting minutes is in the chat. Please click on the link, add your name as a contributor to the meeting, and it is everyone's shared responsibility to take notes. Okay, so as you see, this is a new Google Doc, and you can see if you ever need to go back to prior years, you can go back to prior years meeting minutes up here. A couple of things. I think I kind of wanted to handle something down here first. So we had a student committee meeting in the calendar for next week, which I deleted. In fact, I deleted all of them for the year because we have to have them once a quarter, and history has shown us now that we can't rely on a particular point in time per quarter to have it. We kind of need to do it a little bit more dynamically. So Roberto, the choice is yours, and Emily, since you guys are on the technical call, if you want to have the technical call next week.
I think, yes. What do you think, Roberto?
Sure.
Okay. So if you could add an entry to the calendar, that would be great.
Okay, I will directly add from the Zoom. Yeah, it'll be quite easy. I will do that. And I can see the 25th January and yeah, are there. So that's fine.
Yeah, next week there should be an empty, there should be no entry for a MicroProfile call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we just need to add next week. Yeah, I think it's just need to add next week one, and the repeating course starting from the 25th January for the technical call.
Okay. So our meeting template basically follows the program plan, right? Releases, then spec process, community outreach. Budget's not really a program plan per se, but it's a program plan item. Marketing, infrastructure, web. I didn't know if we wanted to leave the same volunteers here or kind of re-up people. Since this is the start of the year, maybe we can kind of give the opportunity for some folks to volunteer for these topics, to lead each topic, each call, and throughout the year. So I wouldn't mind doing that. But first, one thing I did want to cover, I posted this to the Google group. This is an AI I took from the last call. Whether or not we're going to have a February release or Q1 release, depending on how things work out. And so I was curious to see if we were going to have any spec releases, especially as a part of the platform. I should be more specific about it, but we do want to track all spec releases for each quarter, or sorry, for each traditional release. So February, July, and October. Ooh, I saw Ed there. So Ed's joining. So I do want to be able to track what the plans are for each spec to deliver a release. So as of right now, and maybe this is something we want to talk about in the technical call, the platform does not include LRA. So the fact that there's going to be an LRA 2.0 is not going to impact the MicroProfile spec release itself, right? So I am curious if there's any other specs that will be doing that. So the folks on the spec teams, please go through your plans and see if you're going to be releasing at any of these 3 points, especially the February release, since that's coming up on us pretty quick. Okay, so I wanted to kind of get that one out of the way. Let's see. And there might also be, I don't think I have open telemetry here. So these are existing specs. So if we wanted to maybe add, if there's any plans to release a new spec, we could do that as well, like open telemetry or something. Okay, so that begs the question then, do we plan on delivering a February release? In other words, do any of the component specs that are part of MicroProfile 5 have any specs that are ready to release?
Unlikely. I don't remember seeing any work happening. I mean, we did the Jakarta thing by the end. Well, not the end, but it was like mid-December, right?
Yeah.
And then we have holidays. So on the Jakarta side, until we did that, no other work was done as far as I remember. But I can't tell for all the specs, but at least for I remember seeing. So it's really unlikely that we're gonna have work to deliver on February unless it starts right away and it goes super quick, which usually is not
right
how we work.
And that's actually what I thought would probably happen. It might be that we resume our normal cadence beginning in July. We have gone through various iterations about what the next release would be called, because we thought, well, MicroProfile 5 is a breaking change release. If we have a breaking change release in July, which is our normal breaking change release, the July release, then it would be 6. If it's going to be an incremental release, then it would probably be, well, it might still be a 6. One of the things that we talked about was, do we want to have a MicroProfile release that does the names change switch, and have that be the only release number. So for example, Jakarta went from 8 to 9 as the release that did the namespace update. And then the next feature release really is 10, right? I think 9.1 pretty much was just a JDK update, right? So did we want to take the same approach in MicroProfile, right? Do we just move to 6?
Yeah, I agree that MicroProfile 5 should not be touched as is, except for any other bug change that may appear. Any new APIs or changes into the spec should go into a new Majid version, in this case, MicroProfile 6. So it makes like a clear distinction on what's the only rename and what's the rename plus new APIs.
So I think differently. I think it's not because the kind of 5 just like a Jakarta change and 6 is adding APIs. What I'm thinking is, I think for the July Jakarta's MicroProfile 6, in one of our goals, technical goals, we want to look at, for example, standalone specifications. So one the spec like a GraphQL, and maybe it's kind of, it can add like a GraphQL directly into the MicroProfile 6. So in this case, is basically I get the new spec. The other thing is kind of in the interim, maybe we can release the open telemetry. And then in MicroProfile, in the July release, we might just remove the open tracing and then add the open telemetry. So that's like quite a bigger change. So that's definitely a breaking change.
Yeah,
So
and
I think this
would
be really
agree.
good. Go ahead, Jan.
I would agree. We should follow the rules of semantic versioning, and the breaking change could include multiple breaking changes with one release number. So when we move from 5.0 to 6.0, we can add a lot of breaking changes, like removing specs, adding specs, and do the Jakarta EE update in one release. And if we want to have also add-ons on the 5.0 train, we could also have a 5.1 release and a 6.0 release at the same time, if necessary, or some demand for that.
Yeah, we've done that in the past, going from, I think, 2 to 3. We had a simultaneous release. I don't know if we're going to need to do that. We'll see. I think that this is going to be probably a pretty good topic for the technical call. I don't know if you guys have an agenda set yet for next week, but this does sound like it would be a good topic for the technical call to figure out, what breaking changes that we're going to have across the specs for a July release. I actually think it would work out really well if we had a breaking change release in July, because then we can get back to our normal cadence. Major change, major release in July, minor releases in October and February. That would be awesome if we can get back to that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, sorry. I know is Open API might have some change, but I don't know whether it's been done or not. So I think it's I think it should just open up the floor for the spec to comment. I think is whether they want to do a release, minor release or not. So it's if nobody stand up to do release, sure, let's cancel the February release. But I think I like the idea. Let's just let's just say July release is going to be MicroProfile 6. So the spec.
By the way, just a reminder. I mean, we're talking about releases. Just a reminder. As far as I know, we don't really have that many implementations migrated with Jakarta namespace. All of them are using transformer, right? So I know that Liberty uses a transformer, and Wi-Fi uses a transformer, and I know that because they're using a lot of the SmallRye stuff and Liberty as well. And we only made like a release candidate on just a few implementations on the end of December for the Jakarta rename. I don't believe the transformer is going to work once we start making like all of these new changes. So we really need for the implementations to catch up, right? So it's not really as Jakarta where APIs and implementations are done at the same time. So there is like an additional delay. And this was like a topic that I brought like multiple times in the past, right? Where implementations will require some time and help. And I'm not exactly sure about all the other vendors, but at least Tommy Tribe, I believe that they don't have, they're also using the transformer. They don't have Jakarta ready binaries from the source. No idea about Payara, no idea about Alidon or Oracle. But as far as I know, we really don't have that many implementations or like implementations for each of the components that are Jakarta source ready yet.
So what do you mean the branch directly use directly is Jakarta?
No, what I'm saying is that I mean we also need to think about giving time for the implementations to catch up,
Right.
and not
Yes.
just transformer, instead of just going and putting in more stuff, right? Because it's going to be, if you start adding more stuff on the MicroProfile side, and people are still relying on the transformer, and then now they have to rely on transformer plus API changes, it's going to be a nightmare to maintain all of that, right? So ideally, you want the implementations to be Jakarta source ready for them to start to adjust to the new APIs that are coming up, or whatever changes are coming up.
Yeah, I agree. So this is your kind of your suggestion. So basically skip February release, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not only about skipping February release, right? So if we go into June or July and we're still in the same situation, then we're gonna have to figure out something. So what I'm saying is that we have to pay some careful attention on the implementation side, because if we go too much further without having implementations catch up, without using the transformer, then there's not much point in releasing new stuff that people cannot adopt or use.
Yeah, so we need to chase the implementers.
Exactly, and I brought that multiple times in the past when we were discussing the initial migration plans. So on the small rise side, we already doing that, but it's still going to take a while, and I can't really give a date. Well, for sure it should be before June, but then I don't know how much time we're going to have left to work on new stuff. And I mean, I have no ideas about other implementation, so it will be useful to hear what other implementers have to say.
Yeah, what about we bring the plan that we now have next week to the technical call? We say, guys, we want to aim for July MicroProfile 6, and we would like implementation to have caught up. What do you think? The implementers that are present can answer immediately, and once it aren't present, we can chase from that moment and see what they think, so that they have
this
time
will
to
definitely be discussed on the technical call for sure, and it will be useful to have a rough idea on the state of all the implementers and what are the current roadmaps, so we can align a little bit better on the API side.
So I know, so Ed, I think Helidon is planning to implement a MicroProfile 5 from the social media tweet.
Yeah, Helidon
Do you
3.
know?
Sorry. I was just going to say Helidon 3 will be based on MicroProfile 5. We're in the throes of working on that right now.
Right. Do you know you are using transformer, or you directly change the source to be Jakarta?
I'm gonna have to. I think we're directly changing source, but I need to. I'll need to triple check on that. I'd say wait till next week for the technical call and get the details from Tomasz. But I think he's still on vacation next week too. So I'll dig into that and for sure have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
My understanding is he made the changes directly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so let's do a couple of things here. My camera just turned off. I'll post a thread on kind of summarizing what we just talked about in regards to a July release. Then, Roberto or Emily or whoever kind of can extend that thread and talk more about the impact of transformer and implementations and kind of set up the call for Tuesday, for Tuesday's technical call. So I'll do that this afternoon. I'll send out the kind of a summary of the roadmap, but I'd still like folks, to the best of their ability, to begin adding in releases that they think they'll be delivering in whatever time frame. Okay.
Okay. Oh, by the way, John,
Mhm.
for the like steering committee call, is that not next week?
No, I deleted that because we just had one.
Oh, okay.
And there's
Okay.
really nothing to talk about, I think. Well, we do have to have a community committer vote.
Yeah, and we do need to have a retrospective.
Yeah, retrospective too. That's not listed anywhere. Now we could use, and there's, to be honest, not everyone is on this particular call either, but we could set up the next, especially since we're probably not going to have a February release, we could set up the next live hangout to be a retrospective call. So that would be in 2 weeks. That's another way of
Sounds
approaching
good.
it. Or, yeah. Okay, so I'll do that. I'll make that a retrospective call.
Yeah, let's do it. If somebody objects, then you can always change, but let's just plan it.
In fact, I'm going to put this under miscellaneous. Next will be a retrospective call.
No nominations so far to replace Edwin as the committer rep.
I nominate Paul Buck.
Pardon me? Oh, yeah.
Does that mean
That'd be dangerous. That'd be dangerous. You'd have to make me a committer.
Oh, yeah.
No good will come of that. Yeah.
So
Big shoes to fill with Edwin. Maybe that's the problem.
So that means
Well,
does that mean Edwin has no choice but to stay?
yeah, I mean, we could send out boy, I'm not sure what to do. Would it be an empty position if we can't fill it until we get a volunteer or something like that, Paul? What if we don't have
it would remain empty,
any interested
and then
parties?
It would remain empty if no nomination comes forward by the 17th. And a reminder that committers can self-nominate, and if it wasn't filled, then it would remain empty. And then I believe it'd be up to the steering committee's discretion at a later point in time, if there was a nominee that came forward, to accept a nomination into the open position.
Okay, I'll see if I can send out a reminder on that. Okay. So I think the next thing I just kind of want to cover a little bit are the leads for each section that we normally cover. So for example, this is probably still, well, I don't want to put Edwin in the spot, and Emerson's not here. This is, these are the folks that have been doing it over the last year, right? Edwin, are you still interested in being involved in MicroProfile releases?
Yeah, well, I'm just getting the hang of it. So yeah, I would like to continue there as the master training someone like Emerson,
all right,
taking him along.
So you want to return on your investment, right?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. And
so
we'll have to check with Emerson as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll be there as well. And that's yeah, maybe we could even this year have Emerson lead a release, right? And then you and I could kind of sit back.
We can do the committer work because he's not committer yet, so he can tell us what to do.
Oh, that's right. Emerson needs to be a committer. That's right. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, we'll figure that part out.
Yeah, so he can learn. That's
the specification process. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Where did I put it? Here we go. If we go to the program plan, really all we had under specification process is review the EFSP 1.3 and reconcile that with MicroProfile 1.0. And this is something that might be good to vote on, figure this out and vote on it in Q1 of the steering committee call. So Emily, right now you are listed and a TBD under specification process. I have no problem adding myself to that as well. That's something that you want to be involved in, or anybody else.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's good to see, the change in the 1.3 can help with this spec releases.
Yeah, with updating the MicroProfile spec process. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just moving things along here. If there's volunteers for anyone, for any of these, just go ahead and feel free to raise your hand verbally or whatever. Community outreach. So let's see here. So we have the community outreach goals here. Let's see here. What sounds interesting here is define and track metrics on community outreach, right? So there's going to be a lot of initiative in this one to engage individuals, other groups, and come up with some metrics for tracking community outreach as well, and how to increase participation and all of that. Right now, we've got Chandra and Emerson listed. We'll have to validate with Chandra if he's still interested in doing that as well as Emerson. Is anyone else interested in getting involved in this?
Yeah, John, I can talk to Chandra to see if he's still interested in continuing in that role.
Okay. Yeah, Kevin's name was here. I actually had to go through and remove Kevin from a couple of these because he was involved in this as well. But is there anyone else interested? And I could also push this one out to the Google group email alias and just see if there's other folks interested, because this seems like a really good one for people to kind of get their, get involved in MicroProfile if they don't really want to get involved on the spec side of things. Okay.
Yeah, maybe we also can advertise it in the MicroProfile Twitter handle to see anybody want to help out.
Go to Google group on outreach. Volunteers. At the marketing call for a tweet. See if that's something that we want to do, or if we want to just see what kind of feedback we get from the Google group first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Marketing. I don't know really. We haven't done anything since since 5 was released, because we didn't really have any calls since mid-December. But the way this works basically is it's a rotating role for who kind of takes the lead in these calls and updates people. So there's really nothing to do here, I think, in updating this. I think Caitlin is still the volunteer.
Yeah, I know, John, I know Caitlin committed to doing November and December. But since she's on our leadership team for Garden State Jug, I could ask her if she wants to continue that, or maybe I can find someone else on the leadership team that may want to take that over.
Yeah, we could bring it up at the next marketing call, because usually it's rotated among the folks on the marketing call.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be the next step for us to take there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Infrastructure and the website. So this is a lot of getting hands dirty on the machinery. of MicroProfile IO website and that kind of stuff. All right, so we have some AIs for basically updating the website. And today it's David and Ruslan. Anyone here interested in getting involved in that? Okay,
But
so
is Samas also involved? I thought he did some like PRs related to website change.
yeah, I don't want to sign him up as a volunteer to kind of lead it and provide updates on the call. But I think as a part of my email, what I can do is basically say, you know, who's involved in leading and participating in these various topics.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
I just want to, yeah, I just want to bring up just yeah.
No, it's a good point. But it's going to come down to, these are kind of the folks who lead it in the sense that they create the AIs, they make sure the AIs are being managed, right, and delivered on. So that's kind of what these are versus people contributing it to actually do the AIs. All right, technical goals, Emily, Roberto, and Edwin. Right, we have a couple of them here. Sorry, I went the wrong way here. We have a couple of pages, and you can kind of see these here, right? New technical goals, right? Evaluate new specs and et cetera, right? And
but first you'll have to unlock your device.
Sorry, I think that was Google thinking I am talking to it, my phone. Okay, so in terms of leading it, Emily, Roberto, and Edwin,
Yeah.
you guys okay with that? Anyone want to drop or be added?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm really leading it. I'm participating, that's for sure, but yeah.
Well, it would be if Emily and Roberto aren't here, who's going to provide status updates to this call?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, you
And-
can leave me.
Okay. And then miscellaneous. So next week we're gonna have a technical call. Yes. We just went over this AI. Emily, you added a couple, which interestingly enough, align with technical goals. We've got about 20 minutes left to let's see, retrospective we also covered. That is going to be in 2 weeks. So Emily, you want to kind of lead the discussion on this one?
Yeah, so I think here's kind of we also touched on this in the last quite a few times in last year. So basically, it's the last year we busy with all the Jakarta namespace change, and also the previous year a lot of discussion on the working group. We really need to kind of focus on the innovation. So there's a kind of one thing is kind of previously we talk about have the data access. However, Jakarta started data access. I think is a pretty kind of we need to be careful not to competing with each other. So and then we first the thing we need to get a direction. Where is our innovation space? The second thing, how can we speed up the innovation? One good thing is at least we are making progress on the open telemetry and metrics. However, we really need to do something. I mean, some new specification, like focus on some maybe cloud or some other areas. So ensure like we continue to compatible with complementary to Jakarta and also occupy the space really changing rapidly and etc.
So we have, open telemetry is one. Converters is another discussion. Yeah, data access and in Jakarta, and then you've got gRPC is still something we need to resolve as to where it belongs. I think with gRPC, correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, that you guys proposed it as under the implementation patent license. Did you guys switch that over?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was, I think, a big discussion point about as to where
Wow, that's bad.
I think John is having a echo problem. Maybe John.
I thought it was me. I thought it was me at first.
I think maybe John, you have to leave. But John is not freezing up. We can't hear
Can you mute him?
Let me mute him.
We could make a funny song
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of it.
Yeah, is oh gosh, mute. Okay, I muted John. John, probably you are echoing your. Oh gosh, you can't. John,
The
you
facial
might have
expression
to
suggests
leave
frustration.
and then come back. You might have to leave and then come back. So once you unmute, you are going to be where.
Or it's only his headphone.
Oh, okay.
You could try leave audio under the audio, and then the pull down in the mute next to the mute. Try to leave and come back.
Yeah. Can you rejoin, John?
Is this any better?
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, I switched over to the built-in Mac. I have no idea what happened, so I can go back and share the screen. Yeah, I heard you guys talking and everything. There's nothing on my side that seemed to be wrong, but you guys were obviously getting echoes.
We just
Watch the recording. It's really
Listen to
funny.
the recording. Yeah, it'll be funny.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be the blunt of the humor here. Let's see, taking the brunt of it. All right, I think that's. I don't know how we want to continue this conversation here, Emily. We've got some of what you discussed under the technical goals. Is there some 50,000 foot things that we need to step back on and engage other people to determine how we want to innovate within MicroProfile?
Yeah, so basically also the thing is the other resource issue, right? So it's how many of the people actively working on MicroProfile. This is another concern. So it's kind of, we really even there's people hanging around and etc. How many people are doing things? And So it's this is the other thing, how do we get more people come to this space to share ideas and started kind of the contributing. And also the current, I mean, working group members and etc. also kind of put some resources on the specs. And I think also need to review, I mean, the specs, how many people are working on it, who are they? So using active, yeah.
That's slightly different. I mean, that it's tangential to innovation, right? We definitely need to understand, I think, the resources that we're putting into the existing specs, right? Who's heavily involved in the existing specs, because the bandwidth only goes so far.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a valid point. But you know what would be interesting is engaging the marketing committee to broadcast out the interest for, you know, hey, what's missing in MicroProfile that we should add, kind of tweets and stuff like that, right? We can come up with the right verbiage and stuff, but that's an idea.
Yeah, so based on what you said, actually, is last year we kind of even earlier last year talk about like what's missing and people constantly seeing data access. However, we sit on the also the gRPC, we just sat on it, but nothing happened for the whole year. So if we just ask you what I'm missing, if there's no resources and etc., probably we still can't do any much innovation.
I think using John's idea, trying to get ideas from the community via the marketing is a good idea. And I have another one. What is currently not finished yet is the position between Jakarta EE and MicroProfile, and the type of collaboration. One idea at the beginning when Jakarta EE was created was that MicroProfile could be the incubator of specifications for Jakarta EE. And some of the people I noticed still have that idea. And therefore, we might change a little bit the things, how specs are created, because the best example is gRPC. The specifications where gRPC is based on are located at Jakarta EE, and therefore the people started the project there and not within a MicroProfile, because of Surflet and the things are already done there. And if we improve that a little bit, then yeah, MicroProfile could become the incubator, and when these specs are mature, they could be included into the platform MicroProfile, or the profile MicroProfile, and they also could be pushed back to Jakarta EE as a stable implementation. Maybe we should think about these.
I agree with most of what you said. One of the issues that we faced in the past, and maybe we have to find a way how to fix them, but at least until now we were not able to have an agreement on that, right? Is what about the namespaces, right? So one of the reasons why I see people going to push stuff into Jakarta right now is because if they start things on MicroProfile, they later have to go into a namespace rename from MicroProfile to Jakarta, right? And that's just going to be a major pain. So because there was no agreement on Jakarta to use the MicroProfile namespace, then they'll say, okay, if you want to use MicroProfile stuff, we have to rename it to Jakarta. And we see how painful it was to migrate from Java to Jakarta, and no one wants to go through that pain again. So of course, people will try to minimize any namespace changes that are going to happen. So I see as a good idea to have MicroProfile as an incubator, but if that leads to having to start things in a MicroProfile in the MicroProfile namespace and then Jakarta to adopt and have to go through a migration to namespace, that's not going to work. Because, and especially, I mean, if we're talking about implementations, I think people will accept on the implementation side changing the namespace, but we're talking about APIs, right? So it's going to be really hard to explain to the community, say, oh, now this is in Jakarta side, so now we have to rename to Jakarta, and that's just going to be a major pain. So we'll really need to figure out what the rules of engagement are, so we can reach something like that. And we try that with the technical calls in the CN4J, but they were not very successful because we couldn't reach agreements on all of this stuff.
Yeah, the other, sorry.
I was just a little bit thinking out of the box. What if we as the steering committee members and the strategic partners redefine or reinvent MicroProfile, and we do it all the way around? We say, if we are really seeing MicroProfile as the incubator for Jakarta, why not start MicroProfile specifications with the Jakarta namespace?
Yeah, that's one of my ideas.
See, I'm completely against this
then
idea.
you cannot add it to the platform when you do it that way. But if you intend to have it as a separate specification and end up in Jakarta finally, then that would be possible.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a surprise. I've long kind of pushed back on this idea.
The problem of having a MicroProfile spec started as a Jakarta then is because then people will not make a distinguish on what is MicroProfile and what is Jakarta. Then we'll just ask, well, why do we have MicroProfile in the first place? Just do everything on Jakarta and that's it, right? So for instance, if you look into an example of JNoSQL, right? So it's something that we know, at least for now, that's not going to move into the Jakarta platform. It was rejected to be moved over there. So it could definitely be a MicroProfile specification, but it's not, it's Jakarta specification. But what's the difference? How do you distinguish both? How could you tell that JNoSQL could be Jakarta or MicroProfile, right? So there's no distinction between them. So if we start doing like MicroProfile specification on Jakarta namespace, it's just going to be Jakarta project, not MicroProfile anymore.
So yeah,
valid point. Another idea is we have a blueprint now for namespace changes, and if that is affected only on one spec side, that's much easier, and we still have a tool, the transformer, to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that going for all of that pain is just not really worth it. I mean, even if we know that works, it's just going to be really hard for the community to understand that, and even an additional tool into the implement. Because I mean, while the transformer works, is not free, it's not cheap, right? So you still have to adjust all your build tools. You still have to push binaries on a lot of namespaces, right? And then right now it might seem simpler because we may be talking about one or two, but then you can end up in like a big pile of mush where you have like specs moving from MicroProfile to Jakarta. And what about moving specs from Jakarta to MicroProfile? Could that happen as well? Right? So it's,
I think so.
Yeah, but I mean, sure. But the namespace should definitely be nailed out, and we should definitely try to come up with an agreement on how that can be used. But I fully agree on, or at least I would like to push as much as possible that we should avoid any namespace updates or changes, because it's just going to be major pain for everyone with little gain.
So I have been thinking along the similar line. I'm thinking like we have a CN4J. Maybe it's for the like specs potentially could be migrate to Jakarta. Maybe it's kind of we start using CN4J instead of the MicroProfile. And then we move to Jakarta, so Jakarta can also just use the CN4J without a namespace change. And then we can always use the group ID, artifact ID, like if it's in MicroProfile. So artifact ID will be like the MicroProfile. Changing artifact ID is pretty trivial, doesn't break any customers, the source code and etc. So
Sure, but I mean, we had all of those discussions in CNN4J for config, remember, and you were heavily involved in that as I was as well.
Yeah.
And you remember that Jakarta clearly said, we don't want to use MicroProfile config currently as is. We want to move it to use the Jakarta namespace, and there is no discussion about it. And if we don't do it that way, then we're just going to create something completely new. That was the Jakarta stance on that, right?
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying is if we come up with a new package instead of MicroProfile or instead of Jakarta, we use a mutual one. Maybe it's kind of less pushback. However, I do agree that we have to discuss. I think we do need to revisit CN4J, kind of the resume CN4J course to agree on these kind of things. Otherwise, we still two communities not really working with each other. And
right, so I'm going to kind of step in here. So we need to have a set agenda, because we started to have this technical calls. It seemed like for the sake of having the calls. And so I think we've got probably 2 topics to talk about if there's a CN4J call. One is namespace, the other one is probably gRPC. The thing I do want to remind folks that it's more than technology when it comes to working groups, right? There is MicroProfile has a flatter organizational model and a lower cost, right? And so if we think that, you know, I understand we're probably split on this, right? As soon as you begin moving things out, you're moving it from a lower cost model to a higher cost model, right? If I want to have direct influence over what goes into a spec in terms of voting on approval and so on, all of a sudden the specs that I was influencing in MicroProfile at, let's say, 25K now becomes 300K, right? So there are non-technical things to think about when moving, considering the move of a spec and considering the idea of an incubator model, which is why I actually don't like the incubator model, because they are two working groups that are set up very differently.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest missions we have is let people perceive MicroProfile as we want MicroProfile being perceived. Maybe we don't want to be seen as an incubator, as you said, John. Then we should advertise that it's not an incubator and focus on the points that the working group provides as an advantage to the Jakarta working group. So when we talk about innovation for MicroProfile, I think a lot of the value of MicroProfile is there and not specifically or just within the technical specification that we can produce.
yeah, I agree. I think this kind of thing we need to figure out which territory we want to target on. The other thing, we also do not want to compete with Jakarta EE. I think it may not be goes well if we have a gRPC and Jakarta EE has a gRPC, right? So I think at least we can agree, I mean, which areas is kind of I mean, each community is trying to focus on.
Yeah, but right now there doesn't seem to be a thinkful process about where each spec's going to end up. It just seems that whoever is aligned with whatever technology and picks that up first is the one that's going to end up with. Right. So if I was like a really interested person in gRPC, and because I'm mostly aligned on MicroProfile, I will have started that on MicroProfile. That was it, right? There should be a more clear process and a decision process on where a spec should end up with, no matter who's involved on that, and it should go on either side, depending on its merits and depending on where it fits. So for instance, let's just say we usually mention that MicroProfile is mostly for cloud and microservices, right? So in Jakarta, of course, that you still can be able to, you're still able to develop microservice applications with Jakarta, but we are more aligned in that matter. So more naturally, specs that align more with microservices and cloud should go to MicroProfile, and then probably Jakarta can use that, right? But that's just a very grayish area, right? Because if you look into all of these, you can make arguments for both sides, right? And that's why we are not able to leave or to come with disagreements, right? So in the end, is whoever picks that up first is the person that's gonna, or is the group that's gonna do that first, and that's not gonna work, because then instead of
And I apologize for
collaboration-
interrupting here.
Yeah.
It's just that we're at the top of the hour. I
Sure.
forgot to set out my 5 minutes left comment earlier, so I apologize.
Yeah, the last sense I was saying, because instead of having collaboration, you're just going to have this conflict and discussions all the time.
Yeah, I do agree. So I think we need to clarify. Yeah, I think if we do not discuss clearly in the same within the two community, we keep on like revisiting the same topic over and over again. It's not very helpful.
So John, I
Yeah.
believe, so sorry. So John, because we're really short on time. So John, I think that the topic that needs to be brought up to CN4J is not the gRPC itself, but is a more broader topic, which is how do we decide that a particular spec ends up in either group, right?
Mhm.
And of course, that's like
All right.
an
So
aggregation.
let me ponder on this a little bit.
Or if you think that makes sense,
I'll
right?
probably have to talk to. Yeah. We've tried to think about frameworks and just about how to have these discussions and such. We're 3 minutes after the top of the hour already. But let me ponder this a bit. I know I'm going to have to talk to Will about it as well, because he kind of manages CN4J from the Jakarta side, and see what his thoughts are about how to have this discussion. So, all right. Well, with that, thank you everyone for joining the 2022 inaugural MicroProfile Live Hangout call. For this call, we'll see everyone in same bat time, same bat channel in 2 weeks for the retrospective. Next week is the technical call, same bat time, same bat channel. So, all right, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye, John.
Bye.
Right, John.
Yep, see ya.